It's the Jack and Nick Horror Show.
Nick.
Hey, Jack.
People.
People out there. We called you people, not listeners or users.
Yeah. We're fans.
Fanlies.
Families.
Hi, welcome to the Jack and Nick Horror Show. I'm Nick.
I'm Jack. Tonight, today, this morning, this afternoon, this dawn, we are going to give you a movie of the week, which is the 1985 classic, Return of the Living Dead.
It's a zombie classic, they say.
It is. Or,
Will we? Probably.
yeah.
But we're going to talk about different aspects of it, so stick with us. Even if you've seen the movie before, this will be a nostalgic remembering and happily an info explosion.
And
Perhaps.
then later, since we are recording this show during February, we are going to be celebrating Black History Month by doing what, Nick?
We're going to talk about black heroes and villains in horror. We asked on our Facebook and Twitter pages who the listeners like. Who are your favorite heroes and villains of color? And you told us, and we're going to talk about them and how that affected us in our lives.
All right. So stay tuned. Coming up next is Movie of the Week. Return of the Living Dead, 1985. It stars Clu Gulager, James Karen, Don Calfa, Tom Matthews, Beverly Randolph, Joel Shepard, and there's so many more people that I can name, but we'll probably be here for a while. Especially, you can't forget Linnea Quigley. This was directed by Dan O'Bannon, and it was originally a novel by John Russo, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. But Nick, how long has it been since you have seen Return of the Living Dead?
Oh, I think I actually saw it about 6 or 7 years ago last, when I first got Netflix on my Xbox. It was one of the first ones that I watched because it was on there at the time. Of course, it probably hasn't been on Netflix since then, because you know how Netflix is gimping on stuff sometimes. Like Return to Living Dead 2 is always on there, but I don't like that as much as this one. And when I first saw it, I was actually a kid. I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. And it was one of the last movies that like legitimately bothered me in that kid fear kind of way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you which parts it was in a bit. But this movie's a genuinely fun movie. And I think it doesn't take itself that seriously. And it really helps it. I really enjoy it. I know that you really enjoy it. You like it more than me, in fact. When it comes to zombie movies, I should explain I like the Romero ones best. And I would put this, maybe near the top of this series, I would say. I'm saying, we could talk more about the other movies in the series as we go on. I don't want to spoil my opinion on Rave to the Grave, Part 5, but, Jack, why don't you tell us about this movie and your relationship with it?
My relationship with it, I started dating it because I wanted to see it in a theater. And this came out in 85, so my parents wouldn't allow me to go see a movie called Return of the Living Dead, rated R, in a theater. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to see it. The thing I remember the most is the trailer with the terrible-looking skeleton with its mouth opening up and Do You Want a Party playing. And I got really excited. I'm like, I want to see that. Didn't get to see it till VHS. When it came out on VHS, I rented it. My brother and I rented it and watched it probably 3 times in a row. We loved it that much. And since then, it's like I just had I recorded it off of cable, which is another story in itself. But the quick story of that is I recorded it off of cable, and I recently had moved again, and I was going through my VHS tapes, and I saw I had Return of the Living Dead on VHS. The quality is like near perfect. There aren't really too many glitches on the VHS tape. After that movie, the second movie is Curtains on VHS in a very pristine copy before the Blu-ray came out, so I was very happy. But anyway, Return of the Living Dead, though, for me is top 10 horror film of all time. For me, I'm not saying that's just my opinion. I can watch it repeatedly. I've purchased every single version of it, including DVD, the Blu-ray, the other Blu-ray, the other Blu-ray that's coming out, and I have since seen it in the theater at the AFI, and that was a wonderful experience. To see this movie on the actual big screen in 35 millimeter is just a wonderful thing. But the movie itself is just, I find it to be both comical, political, satirical, and fun, and also somewhat dramatic and depressing. It's pretty much what Dan O'Bannon is in a nutshell. To give you an idea of if you ever wanted to know what Dan O'Bannon would be like, I've never met the guy, but from everything I've read about him, it's Return of the Living Dead. And it's one of my all-time favorite movies. So, that being said, I just, wow, yeah. What is it? I want to talk about some of the cast members too. Now, James Karen, I'll ask you about him, Nick, because there are certain people that live on the East Coast, and James Karen is pretty famous on the East Coast for one reason.
Am I supposed to know it?
I don't know. He was the Pathmark guy on the commercials. Do you guys have Pathmarks? And
We have Pathmarks, but dude, I am too young to remember a commercial from Pathmarks.
He was always on there, and I remember seeing him in Poltergeist, and I'm like, oh my god, it's the grocery store guy. he's in this movie, and then when I see him in Return of the Living Dead, I'm like, no, that's not the same guy. And sure enough, I think that James Karen is probably one of my favorite characters in a horror movie. That's not his character's name in this. His character's name is Frank. But Frank is just he's the kind of guy that you will run into if you're starting a new job. Do you know what I mean? If you not a guy with a power trip, Nick, but like
the guy who's been there forever, you mean?
Yeah, the guy who's been there forever, and
you work like a retail job, right. Like I remember, and I know exactly what you mean because that's exactly what I thought of. The relationship he strikes up with the other main character at the beginning, who's some teenager on his first day on the job. Mm-hmm. He's like, I know all the ins and outs of this job, and I'm going to show you everything going on back in the back, and let me show you the weirdest thing here and the strangest thing here, and it gets kind of boring, so you may want to bring a magazine, and that type of guy.
Yep. And it's not like he's on a power trip, but he is on a power trip. And then when he's telling the story about Night of the Living Dead and how it was real and all. It's just
because in this movie's universe, the Living Dead was real.
Yeah.
The Night of the Living Dead, except not truthful. The movie was not truthful to what actually happened.
Right. And originally, basically you had John Russo and George Romero that co-wrote Night of the Living Dead together. And what had happened was after Night of the Living Dead had happened, John Russo went on his own, George Romero went on his own, and John Russo wrote a book called Return of the Living Dead. It's a complete departure from this movie. This movie is Dan O'Bannon's baby altogether.
Right. Because they have the rights to the phrase "living dead," if you
Right.
can imagine. That's the lineage of the Night of the Living Dead movie. You need a flow chart to understand it. Maybe I'll post one on our Facebook page before we put up this episode, because there are several movies. Like I actually just found one, as I said, flowchart. I looked it up. There's at least 28, according to denofgeek.us. There's at least 28 other movies connected to Night of the Living Dead as pseudo sequels, direct sequels, remakes. The Fulci movies, which are also disconnected. Zombie. If you're, I can't imagine someone knowing about the zombie movies, the Italian zombie movies, and not knowing what I meant by
Yes.
and also all the remakes, all the 3D remakes, all the 3D remakes starring Sid Haig. There's so many different Night of the Living Dead connected movies. It's goddamn ridiculous.
It is, and it is Night of the Living Dead was a staple movie, and if you want to read about the court case that had happened, I suggest if you ever get a chance to watch Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs, if you see it on YouTube or something, he explains the whole thing that had happened with the Night of the Living Dead versus the Dead, where it was Russo got Living Dead and Romero could only use Dead. So instead of Dawn of the Living Dead, it was Dawn of the Dead. And so, but yeah, basically, I believe that Tobe Hooper was originally supposed to be the director of this, and it changed hands left and right, and then finally it just went to Dan O'Bannon, who just totally overtook the project. Who's kind of a psychopath, but tremendous writer, director. I mean, he hasn't directed too many movies. He made this half-made Resurrection, which I find was a really cool movie, and he worked on Dark Star with John Carpenter. He's got like a whole history with John Carpenter. There's very fucked up history. Pardon my French, but anyway, so you meet Frank and Freddy, and I love the way the movie starts, where it's almost Raising Arizona-ish, where it takes its time to get to the credits, and it just opens, and you're thrown right into this warehouse where there's all these corpses, and he's just being walked around, and then boom, the container gets hit, and gas emits, they get sick, and then there you have your credits, and then you meet the rest of the cast, bunch of punks, and one of the girls is Freddy's girlfriend, etc. And then shit happens. I'll just say. But man, the rest of the cast, even like the punks in this, are great. Everybody in this movie is on their A game. And for a zombie movie made in 1985, it's I think it's very well acted on everybody's part. I don't think there's
everybody gets what type of movie they were making in this.
Right.
Going to be like sort of ridiculous, exploitative, goofy, but also takes itself too seriously at points, but not seriously for most of the whole goddamn movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes it good, makes it fun and good. And it's like, it's such a flavor that's hard to capture. And I know we've talked about it when we review other movies, that it's like, yeah, this movie takes itself seriously at inappropriate times, and therefore it's hilarious. Like a movie like Nurse 3D from 2 years ago or whatever.
That did not
I always think about how you and I inexplicably enjoyed ourselves watching that stupid movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally a dumb movie, but the way it sort of drew on these noir themes and like was way over the top with its seriousness in some scenes, and then its ridiculousness in other scenes. This movie here, Return of the Dead, has that same type of flavor, where it just goes back and forth, but in ways that makes you not hate it, like in ways that makes it more endearing. It's a very hard balance to achieve.
Right, and I mean the way they do it too. All right, so you have when the gas is emitted, and there's the reanimated corpse, and they chop it up in pieces. They put it in bags. Their boss, played by Clu Gulager, named Bert, comes over, and he says, "Yes, Ernie, let's take it over to Ernie and have it, just burned in the crematorium." So they take it over to Ernie, and just like that, like they take it over to Ernie. He's like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Rabid weasels," right? And he plays it straight. It's like it's
Yeah.
funny, but he's playing it where he's terrified and worried.
Right, like the movie feels like at that point when they go to the mortician's office that it could turn into like the Naked Gun real quick.
Yeah, and
Right.
James Cameron, or both Frank and Freddie are both sick and acting weird, and James Cameron's taking it to like 110%, and it's great. It all works beautifully. And you know what? The other thing too with the punks, yeah, of course you have Linnea Quigley getting butt ass naked, and she did have a bald merkin, but
Wait, was it really a merkin?
yeah, it was a merkin. They
That
didn't-
was a merkin?
yeah, it looked real, didn't it?
Oh, I thought that was actual vagina.
No, it was not. But the characters during that whole entire scene, you get to know all the characters. And normally, when you're watching a movie with a bunch of punks, it's just like somebody has stuff in their hair and they have a knife and they're like, "Don't mess with me, man." That's their character.
Right,
These-
they're quick fodder.
Right.
In a regular movie, they would be quick fodder, I should say. Whereas here, yeah, they become real capable characters on their own, sort of.
Right, and all the actors bring their best to each role, which is cool. And it's something that you really don't get to see in too many zombie movies. I mean, a lot of them a lot of the Romero ones you really get to know the characters as well, which is good. I mean, maybe you need both of these old people to to every zombie movie character. But I would say that yeah, you get to know everybody, and they actually everybody has some depth to their character. In particular, Frank, and not to spoil it, but I mean this movie's 1985. Come on now, and you probably saw it,
We're kind of expecting you to go and watch it and come right back right now.
right? But when Frank decides to kill himself, that scene is one of the most I don't get teared up, but it's really really sad because you see that he kisses his wedding ring and puts it on the thing, and it's like, man, this guy is like gonna kill himself, and he's just, he knows it's over, and it's just the way it's done and the way he goes in and the screams that come out of him. It's really, 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 really cool stuff. And I know that was something that was suggested by James Cameron. He wasn't supposed to go out that way, and that's why they threw in the line. He said that he bet Freddy that he can work that machine or something like that. But I mean, man, I could go on for probably about 20 hours about Return of the Living Dead, and a lot of this stuff a lot of people will already know because there's a documentary that's out called More Brains about Return of the Living Dead. Highly recommend it. It's like 2 hours, but it feels like 20 minutes. There is a book that's based on the making of Return of the Living Dead. Totally worth it. There's a new version of it coming out soon. And they actually talk about the entire series in the book. So,
Well, one thing that I want to talk about with this movie is the innovations to zombie lore that
Right.
it brought. Basically, before this movie, zombies weren't really brain eaters. They were kind of eating human flesh and stuff.
Right.
And also in this movie, the way that the zombies are is pretty much different, especially different than the Living Dead zombies that are just sort of, hungering monsters. In this movie, they retain, and in this universe, actually, they retain more of their thought, and they actually like decompose rapidly, but in a way that is like way more realistic. Like in the Living Dead movies, they turn blue, they look grayish, they shamble around and stuff. In these movies, they basically, if you've ever taken a class on what happens to the body after you die, that's what they go through. The ligaments start to harden, and blood starts to pool up in parts of the body, leaving like bruised, hemorrhaging spots. And like the zombies are still cognizant of it, so they're experiencing the horrible pain of rigor mortis, and of blood pooling up in their bodies and stuff. And like there's this great scene where two of the characters who have been exposed to the toxic gas start turning into zombies. They're going through the throes of rigor mortis, and they're in great pain, and like they're like, we got to move them to another room with carpet so that they can lay on it, or they're gonna start to develop sores and stuff. So they pick them up and they're carrying them through the hall, and I laugh so much at that scene because the two guys are like screaming about it, and but it's kind of like you can almost tell that they had fun making that ridiculous part. But it also leads way to one of the most terrifying scenes. When I was a kid, I saw this scene. I remember it was on WPIX Channel 11, the channel that showed horror movies in the middle of the day when I was a kid. And it's the scene where the half zombie woman thing, the animatronic woman, which looking at it now, it looks ridiculous and fake and all that. But when I was a kid, I had to look at it with like one eye closed entirely and the other eye just peeking. And this is like when I was like an 11 or 12-year-old kid. And it was just so hideous. And she's talking to the living characters, and she's like, "It hurts to die. It hurts to be dead. It hurts. Everything about this hurts." Terrified me. Stuck with me. Still makes me feel a little uneasy when I watch that scene.
Yeah, the pain.
Right.
And that it's really cool how all the different variations of zombies are broken down in the movie too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where you have that stage where it's almost a skeleton. And you have the other guys who are turning into, and the other ones that have risen from the grave in all their different variations. It's
right.
It's kind of cool. And even the zombies have personality too.
Oh, right. Famously, one of them says into the an ambulance comes, they eat the paramedics, and one of them picks up the microphone and says, "Send more paramedics." Yep. Which is actually a band, a horror punk band, or it was, or something.
Yep.
The "Send More Paramedics." And I think it's a joke that's mentioned in or referenced in Shaun of the Dead at some point. There's like some paramedics from Sendmore or something. Are you there?
Possibly. I'm trying to remember. I'm thinking about that.
I don't know.
I think everybody else did that.
But yeah, it's totally, like I said, a lot of fun. I would recommend it. I mean, is there anything else about this movie in particular you want to talk about?
Like I said, I can go on for hours and days, but I'm not going to.
Well, let's go on just real quick because we don't got to talk about it long. The rest of the series.
Yes, I saw part 2 in the theater.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it was so much fun. Yeah. Sold out crowd. Yeah, and I was in 7th grade, and I was enjoying everything about it. And then, then
was very memorable box art.
Yeah, then I watched it again on tape, and I loved it. Watch it over and over again, and then when VHS kind of went away, I got the DVD, and I watched it again, and I'm like, this is not that great, man. But it has its moments, but it's not as good as the first one at all.
No, it's a lot slower or something. I don't know, man. Like, I was watching it around the same time when I first got Netflix. I watched them almost like, a couple of days apart. And the second one has most of the same cast, or some of the same cast, playing different roles. They're all back as different people. But it just, like, starts off so much slower and isn't as fun. I don't know. It's not terrible, but I don't prefer it at all. I don't enjoy it as much, nearly.
Yeah, it feels like a different movie. I mean, the part two does recast both James Cameron and Tom Matthews, and I understand that neither one of them was having a good time. Wonderful.
Right.
Nobody was having fun on this movie. The rest of that cast too. It has Suzanne Snyder from Weird Science. She's the older sister. And the other dude, his Dana something. I can't remember his name. He's in Brian. There's so many weird connections here, but Brian Peck, who was Scuzz in Return of the Living Dead. He's also Michael Jackson in Return of the Living Dead Part 2. He directed a movie called The Willies with James Cameron and that Dana dude from Return of the Living Dead 2. There's like all this weird... It's the whole thing about horror, man. It's all incestual. Before you know... One person from one end of the world knows another person from the other end of the world if they're both related to the horror genre. It's very odd, but I mean, too, I think that they still, in the States, they still have yet to release the original soundtrack on the DVD. I understand that in the alternate language, you can hear the real soundtrack, the background music, but in the English spoken language track on the DVD, they have some generic score because they didn't want to secure the rights to the score, and nor did they care. Mm-hmm. And the director who does commentary on it actually says something about that, and he talks about how abysmal the horrible score is to the movie. I just don't understand the concept there.
Part three you never saw, right?
Part 3 I saw, yeah. I really enjoyed 3. I mean, that one's, what's his name? Brian Yuzna from Reanimator series and Society. It has some really cool moments, and that's another one that was cut down. There's a lot more to the movie.
Now, I remember I got this one for Christmas one year on VHS in the 90s. I believe I must have been a teenager by the time this one came out, but it is pretty much your typical direct to VHS zombie movie from the 90s. Like, it's not, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I remember the girl in it was really good, who's like the head zombie. I forget the name of the actress who plays her, but I really enjoyed her for some reason.
I think it had something to do with her breasts.
Boy. Yes, I was a teenage boy, and I saw this movie, you see.
When I was a teenage boy, I would stay up late, and I'd watch a bunch of vintage softcore porn.
Oh, dear God.
That's all we had, really.
Just what we could tape off of the cable at late.
Yeah, kids that age would get they would make best of tape. Well, boys especially would make best of tapes where you sit there with your VCR and you're waiting for the nude scenes to come on. You hit record because you're pathetic. Yep, it's true. There are a lot of kids that did that.
Now,
I was one.
Part 4. Did you ever see Part 4? Necropolis.
Here's the thing. No. And I'll tell you why. Because they're not Return of the Living Dead movies.
No, they're really not. But I have seen Parts 4 and 5. Part 4, I can't even remember. I remember it just being like the most generic, again, direct to video. In fact, I think it was direct to Sci-Fi Channel on this one, wasn't it? Maybe.
They were direct
Uh,
to VHS. I know that.
well, whatever. It came out in the mid 2000s, and it was just a poop shoot. And then the one I enjoyed least or most of all was Return of the Jet Part 5, which could be the funniest if you want to make fun of a movie and MST3K it as you watch. It was Return of the Living Dead Part 5, Rave to the Grave, and it's like zombies attack a rave. And this one came out they came out right back to back, 4 and 5. They just made them real quick and pooped them out. And of course, this one, just as it explains, it's about a rave from the grave where there's a rave and then zombies attack because it's at a college and they find a barrel of toxic waste that somebody opens and the rave gets infected. Oh my god, it's really stupid. It's really stupid. Like, I have almost nothing. Like, my brain can barely remember it other than it was kind of colorful. And it was just really stupid.
I know that they were selling the rights to it on eBay.
The rights?
The
I would
rights
have bought that.
or Return of the Living Dead Part 5.
And I also remember that these two movies, parts 4 and 5, were filmed in like a foreign country. I'll never forget. I was watching one of these movies, and like I said, we rented them like back to back and played them out in a couple of days. And we were watching it, and there was a scene on a highway, and I was like, "Why does that middle barrier in the road look so strange? Are they in the Southwest or somewhere that I'm just not familiar with the roadways of?" And I was like, "Wait a minute. They're in some other goddamn country." And it was Romania and the Ukraine where these where parts 4 and 5 were filmed. Once you get the rights to a movie, you could just do whatever the hell you want. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the future of this series is. I assumed at the time that they were going to just crank out like parts 6, 7, and 8 because why the hell not?
Right.
But they never did. So for now, the series lays dormant until it rises again. There was talk of a remake a couple of years ago when horror movies when pretty much everything was being remade, especially zombie stuff. But I think that that's pretty much dead.
Pretty much, I would say yes.
I don't. Wasn't there talk of it? When The Walking Dead first started, they were like, "Yeah, and we're going to make a Return of the Living Dead TV show too," and then it never happened, right?
Well, they said the same about Shaun of the Dead too.
Right, they did. It's just talk, never by the hype, as I always say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can't wait to see The Stand.
yeah, 150 years from now, along with The Dark Tower, 150 years from now. Never coming. Never. But then again, we said Preacher was never coming, and it's almost here.
Well,
So, Return of the Living Dead. I recommend it. Check it out. But skip the sequels. You could skip all the sequels. Like, unless you really love part 1, then you can watch part 2. But honestly, 3, 4, and 5, there's probably other movies out there that you're supposed to see by now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe go see, or not go. Watch part 2 if you like late 80s cheese. You'd probably enjoy it. Parts of it, it's not as clever and fun as the first one.
Right.
It has its moments, though. Welcome back, and now we are going to be celebrating Black History Month with ours and your favorite heroes and villains amongst black characters in horror films. Nick.
Yes.
What you got, man?
First off, is Blade, because duh. But that doesn't really have anything to do with him being black so much as it has to do with him being Wesley Snipes playing Blade. I just really like Blade. I just wanted to bring it up for no reason, I guess. But one movie that really I brought up at other times, and I think it's just because it's like it's a little bit ridiculous that you have to dig this deep to find a black character that's not somehow a stereotypical or token black guy in a horror movie, or the black guy who gets killed in the first scene, or what have you. You know how like black characters in horror movies so commonly follow these types of tropes. The movie that I always have to pull from is Frankenfish, some made for sci-fi movie that no one has ever seen. It was written by Simon Barrett, who wrote and produced like the VHS movies. But Frankenfish has two main black characters, and it shows you how you can have a black character where the blackness is not their character. Like, these are just people, you know? It's not some sort of ball of stereotypes and token black character jokes of going, damn, you know, like you see in so many movies. It just doesn't even, you know, like race doesn't even factor into it, and they're able to just be characters. Like, it's not mentioned. It's not like, oh my God, you're here and you're a black guy, you know, kind of like Finn in Star Wars, where it's like not mentioned and not important, and it's just a thing that goes on in a movie. It's the way I feel comfortable with race as somebody who's watching a movie, I guess you could say. I also really like Tony Todd in Resident Evil, because I like it when he gets caught into the thing and he gets cut into like a bunch of pieces by lasers. That is totally unrelated, though. And those
he lasted long.
he did. He made it through almost half the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of heroic, but you can't beat sweet Mila. She gets to live every time.
I know. What's up with that?
I don't know, but we'll find out soon. Oh man, that's a movie we got to talk about on this show when it comes out, because I see all the Resident Evil movies. I'm gonna make Jack see it.
I've seen them all.
So Jack, do you want to talk about? Well, yeah, you have, but I'm gonna make you see this one.
All right.
You thought you were safe from Resident Evil 6, the final chapter.
And next week you can join me on the Jack Show.
Yes, and you can come see the Nick Show. I'll be performing it on the corner by myself in the box.
In a box, yeah, with a cup and a string.
So anyway, Jack, who are your heroes of color in horror?
I actually chose one guy that is both a hero and a villain. Actually, a villain and then a hero.
So I was afraid you were going to spoil it in a bad way, but now it sounds like you're spoiling it in an okay way.
Yeah. That character is Ali, who is played by Nick Savage in Friday the 13th Part 3 as one of the asshole biker people. And what happens in Part 3 is Shelly and the other girl that gets the arrow through her eye go to the convenience store to get some stuff, and they get harassed by these bikers, and Allie is one of them. They get into this big altercation. Allie's the one that comes out and puts his fist through their windshield, and then Shelly goes around, drives the car, little VW Beetle back, and drives over their motorcycles. And he's like, I'm going to get you. You know, he's all PO'd and all that. And later on, they do get them. They take away their gas from the van, which kind of traps them. And that's why Jason is able to kill them. But Jason kills all the bikers right after they suck the gas out of the van. And you think that Ali is dead because he's hacked up like crazy by, Jason with a machete. Then, later on in the movie, spoiler alert, what's her name? Chris, who is played by everybody's favorite actress, Dana Kimmel, Um, she's attacked by Jason in the barn, and Ali comes to her rescue and attacks Jason. He's then quickly dispatched, but I'm like, hey, this guy has an arc, much like Shelly does in Friday the 13th Part 3. It's kind of why I like that one in Part 4. Where the guy's a scumbag, he's a bully, total jerk, gets his ass kicked, and then comes back to kick some ass and tries to be the hero of the day. And I think that was a commendable thing. So that's why I think that Ali from Friday the 13th 3 is a character that people should be like, this guy is one of the best characters. Because he doesn't get mentioned much. They don't even mention Fox or the other jerk off. But, in Friday the 13th Part 3, who do you remember, Nick? Name a character.
Friday the 13th Part 3, Jason.
And anybody else?
By name, never.
Yeah, never.
I can never remember names.
Everybody remembers Shelley, though, because Shelley is the one that a lot of horror nerds could identify with, and they still can.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I got. Do you have anybody else, Nick?
Well, yeah. As for horror villains, first before horror villain, I want to talk about a tweener as well. Which this character kind of embodies that realm between taking itself too seriously and not seriously at all. But also in a Friday the 13th movie, in Friday the 13th Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, you gotta love Duke. He's fucking terrible. And I always liked him because it's like that type of role. He plays basically like this bounty hunter, tracker type of character. And that type of role is so commonly played by like either an Australian or, a, he it would be like a tough guy from out west who's still living the cowboy life or something. And by casting, I don't know the guy's real name.
It's Stephen Williams.
Stephen Williams, also the real name of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now you learned something.
I did.
But he is he's like atypical casting for that type of role, and I feel like he's so hammy. It's just like wonderful. And like if there's any reason to watch that movie again, it's him. I love that character of Duke, and I love it in a stupid way though, because it's easily such a terrible movie, but you gotta love Duke in it.
Creighton Duke is,
Creighton Duke, that's his full name.
He's well known for 21 Jump Street. But you know where I remember Creighton Duke from?
No.
The Blues Brothers.
He's in the Blues Brothers?
He's the deputy or the sheriff that's after him.
Oh.
The whole thing. And he's the one that says he's going to get that sucker if it's the last thing he ever does.
But as for villains, a villain that I totally enjoy, I actually like her performance better than the movie itself. I'm not a huge fan of this movie. I saw it for the first time about 2 years ago, in 1980s vampire movie just called Vamp.
Vamp, yes, Grace Jones.
Right, Grace Jones. She plays a vampire that like, oh man, what's the plot of that movie? There's like kids, there's college kids that are on like a road trip and they stop at like a brothel or something, right?
Yeah, it's Robert Ressler and Makepeace from My Bodyguard take Long Duck Dong on a road trip to get strippers to bring for their fraternity that they are pledging for. And it's almost like From Dusk Till Dawn.
Right, very much so. And I'm not huge into that, but I really thought that she was just, all right. Well, for those people who aren't familiar with Grace Jones, she was like a singer. She still is a singer, but she's also like a fashionista of sorts, sort of in the way she was like the Lady Gaga of the 1980s, other than else who could be compared like that. But she's very much like Lady Gaga or like Marilyn Manson, where like she's doing things stylistically to be shocking and be like sort of alluring, but also mysterious and subversive, and like having ridiculous stage costumes and stuff. And in the movie, she's just awesome. Like she's wearing like all white makeup at one point to look like a horrible vampire, but then later on she doesn't have that makeup on and she's just herself, except she's wearing like wire, like just twisted up wire. And it's really, really uh, aesthetically unique in a way that like sometimes singers will bring that to a role where it's like they're the only person who could have played this character and I totally believe them as that character. Like when David Bowie played Tesla in The Prestige, I'm just like, yeah, he's Tesla. Or I guess for the average person I should have said when he was the Goblin King in Labyrinth, but I'm not cool with that.
Good times. Yeah, I really enjoy Vamp. It's a fun movie, and I love the neon colors in it. So
Right. Like that movie is a gorgeous movie.
yeah,
For its 1980s aesthetic. But other than that, I'm not a huge fan of it. But I totally think that it's worth watching for at least those couple of things we said.
yeah. It's got some cool twist in it too, I think, and it's God, what's his name in it too? Billy Drago, the villain that's in a whole bunch of horror movies and The Untouchables and stuff. Anyway, that's besides our sorry asses. We have some Twitter people.
Right. You guys got to be following us on Twitter and on Facebook if you want to participate in the weekly. I shouldn't say weekly because we're not a weekly podcast. In the bi-weekly fan participation episode or questions, or actually last time it wasn't even a question. The people who participated got to come on the show. So if you want to be a part of our show, follow us because that's the only way, man. So what do you got, Jack?
I've got I'm sorry, I don't want to call them Twitter people. Fellow friends, we'll call them, of the show. Friends of the show. We have at Zombear13 says, gotta be Demon from Friday 13th Part 5. Not sure whether he's a hero or a villain. Hashtag those damn enchiladas. It's funny, Demon's... what's his name, from Miguel Nunez from Friday the 13th, or Return of the Living Dead. He's in that as well. I love Demon. You know why I love Demon, don't you, Nick?
I know several reasons why.
Ooh, baby, ooh, baby. That's who Demon is. And yes, he's one of the many characters in Friday the 13th series that takes a dump and is killed. Because it happens in Part 3, it happens in Part 5, it happens in Part 6 as well. The whatever they are, the throwbacks to the 50s guys that have to go one guy's to take a shit. So Demon did take his enchilada shit. Anyway, at
What?
That's not a choice. I was going to read the wrong thing. We have at McBoss says, well, Candyman is an obvious one, I guess, but Tony Todd's character in Final Destination has always creeped me out. Just trying to figure out who he actually is, Death, Satan, or just a stereotypical magic black dude. Ha ha. I think he's a messenger of death. That's what I think. What do you think, Nick?
Well, yeah, that's what I always understood it to be. But didn't he play a different role in the last one?
No.
Like he plays the same role in all of them except for one?
No, he's the same.
Oh.
And in one of them, he just gives his voiceover. He doesn't appear in it. I think that was the fourth one.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So that's from Mick Boss. So that's my reply to that. Good feedback. We also got at Joyless19 Villain for me is Tony Todd as Candyman, hands down. Hero would be Roger Alvin Alexis from Night of the Demons! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. I agree with the hero because that is one of the very few black characters that lives through a horror film. And one horror film that's an ensemble piece where you have a final girl and a final guy. So I would totally agree with both of those. I mean, Candyman is a tremendous horror villain. How long has it been since you've seen Candyman, Nick?
Oh, only a couple of years, maybe 3.
Okay. That movie is still quite haunting, I would say.
Well, I love the score to Candyman
Oh my god!
more than I
yeah.
love the movie itself, actually.
Yes, and the composer didn't even know it was for a horror film. I think.
Well, Philip Glass
Yeah.
thought it was going to be a more tasteful movie than that. And he writes great stuff, like absolutely wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Oh yeah.
But he was not happy with that movie. He's super pretentious. What can I say? But yeah, check that one out, or at least listen to it on Spotify or YouTube or something.
All right. Well, that's it for Twitter. What do you got, Nick?
On Facebook, our old buddy Tor, who was on the show last week, go back and listen.
Yeah,
He
Tor's a
said
good man.
for heroes, Bobby Rhodes from Demons
Yes!
1 2 comes to mind straight away.
Holy shit! She's a friend of mine.
His performance in those films is hilarious and worthy of cult adoration.
Yes.
I had the good fortune to see Demons during a movie marathon. For some reason, I had to stop mid sentence there because my brain was like, I had the good fortune to see Demons during a movie, and I went, what? Anyway, I had the good fortune to see Demons during a movie marathon recently, and he brought the house down. For villains, Tony Todd as the Candyman. A spectacular performance in one of my all-time favorite horror movies. It's true, he does spit up bees in that movie. So
And he
there's
got
that.
he got stung like I think 100 times.
Yeah, in the mouth.
Mm-hmm. No, like in real.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I'm saying. Like, he really spits out bees.
Mm-hmm.
Casey Chamberlain, another contestant from our show last week,
A
said,
big winner.
in fact, our big winner, and he'll be back next time we have a game show.
Spoiler
Pay attention.
alert.
Pay attention. He said, this is a trick. Black people don't last long in horror movies, except Candyman. So I guess that's his answer.
For both
Thanks for
hero
playing.
and villain.
Favorite hero, Dwayne Jones from Night of the Living Dead. Obviously, super important casting, as it was the 60s, and they let a black man into a movie in the hero role, which did not happen before that movie or after it for very many years. And even nowadays, pretty much doesn't happen until Black Panther comes out next year.
And it wasn't their intention either. Like,
Right.
they
You know,
weren't.
they claim that, but I think that George Romero's just full of shit.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Because it was done. The movie was done before Martin Luther King was shot,
Yeah.
and he was driving the film to the producer or the production company that he was trying to sell it to.
Yeah.
And as he was going there, that had happened, and he was like really upset. And then he realized, oh my God, we have a movie with a statement now. You know, like
I don't.
that's what he claims. I wasn't there.
But then look at like all of his other movies thereafter are all statement.
Well,
movies, up
yeah.
to and including Survival of the Living Dead. But all of his movies are statement movies. I think that he was always of that mindset and kind of downplayed it.
I think only his zombie movies are, because not Monkey Shines or Creep Show or, well, The Crazies was, but like
Yeah, I meant the zombie movie.
yeah, the zombie movie. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think that maybe he used that as a springboard because the first one turned into a political movie, and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'll have a message with all my movies, all my zombie movies."
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I like to give him more credit on it, but I also, when I'm giving him more credit, it's backhandedly because I'm like, you're lying, asshole. I'm trying to give you credit and you're lying. Anyway, he also said favorite villain. Carol Speed from Abby. I don't know that movie.
Oh, Abby is the Exorcist ripoff.
Oh,
Yeah, but I haven't watched it yet. I have the DVD, and I'm really excited, and I have to watch it with my girlfriend because there are certain movies that we say to each other, "I'm not going to watch this without you." And
Yeah.
Abby's one of them, but we hardly get to see each other because we're scheduled. So,
right. All right. Well,
but Carol Speed is she is badass. So,
so hang on, I lost my place. Okay, Sean Kelly said Jada Pinkett as Geraldine in Demon Knight
in Demon Knight, yep.
is a pretty cool final girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Roger survives Night of the Demons by hauling ass in the opposite direction whenever he saw a demon.
I told you, man, that guy. I knew he would get a bunch of votes because he is he's awesome. Yeah, man. Who is it? Jada Pinkett in Demon Knight. Demon Knight for me is Billy Zane's game. Like that's a complete Billy Zane movie. Mm-hmm. But Jada Pinkett and William Sadler both, hold their own against him. But yeah, I would agree with that. She does do a damn good job.
Also, he also said, can't forget Kick-Ass Kincaid from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4. Yes,
Yep.
I'll agree. He's a badass.
I totally agree with that. Actually, he was going to be my hero, but I did see that Sean chose that. And then I thought to myself, well, my dude actually is a hero and a villain. So, dude, when I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, I was like, Kincaid is my new best friend. Like, I loved Kincaid. He was my favorite part of Part 3. And then later on, when I saw him in Part 4, I was like, what a bitch. Because he went out quick, just like Joey and everybody else. I was so mad. I was like, man.
No, I felt the same way, actually, because I totally thought he was badass.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. We all lose to Freddy in the end, don't we?
Mm.
Especially Heather Langenkamp in real life, in the real world, outside of Dreamland. Whatever. Anyway, and he also says Tony Todd, of course.
And what?
And he also, he has another list here that he says, please, for the love of Black Santa Claus, do not mention. And then I'm not supposed to mention him. Should I mention him?
I don't know. If he says do not mention, I would say not to mention.
Well,
Maybe...
then go on our Facebook and look at them, because really, if I mention these ones, we're not celebrating Black History Month at all. we're I don't even, because one of them is my least favorite things in horror. So go and guess which one is my least favorite thing in horror. Go and look for Sean Kelly's comment and tell me which one's my least favorite.
Did you hear that?
What?
We just got one click on her
Oh
page.
my god! We got a click.
We got a click
on our Facebook page.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, it feels so good. Dude, please, I'm serious about this. You got to come and follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, come and subscribe to us on iTunes. We're on YouTube. Come and subscribe there if you'd prefer to listen to us while you work, or just I don't know, what else can they do? We're on Tumblr. We're have a Tumblr we've never mentioned before, and I don't know if we'll ever mention again. Whatever you like, we are there. So come and find us so that you can keep finding us, because we want you to be able to participate in the show, and we want to be able to have fun with you. And thank you for everyone who does send stuff in, because you're not just giving us content for the show. We're making a friendship here with you. And please, if you could, stop by iTunes, give us some good reviews if you actually enjoy this show. If you don't enjoy this show, don't look at my fucking iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can follow me at JacobK666 on Twitter. And follow the show at Jack and Nick Horror Show. I think that's what it is. No. All right.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you very
Jack.
much. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you, or it's Jack and Nick Show at Jack and Nick Show.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you next show.
Right, man.
I'm not
Talk
gonna
to you.
talk to you again at all.
No, me neither. I'm not even gonna tell you what movie. You just gotta guess.
All right, fine with me.
Okay.
Probably saw it anyway.
Probably a dick.